Good evening. Today we are going to talk about traveling, the third video series from the conversation activities, and we will be covering all class activities related to IELTS students who are going to answer travel related questions. So let's get going. The first thing we have is terminal objectives. Our IELTS students are expected to answer a set of questions in forms of arguments about traveling. So they are expected to talk about their preferred destinations, their accommodations, where they are going to stay, their modes of transfer, whether they're going to use a bus, a train, or a plane in order to get transferred to their preferred destinations. They will be asked to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of traveling, and they would be required to talk about tourist activities, for example, eating local food or sightseeing, trekking, etc. They would also be asked to talk about the good and bad experiences they have had while they were on a journey. Our enabling objectives, the means that we try to use in order to achieve our purposes. Basically, we have a wide range of grammatical concepts. For example, simple past tense is used in order to talk about our trip. So basically, since we use some specific expressions, for example, last year, so time expressions exist in our sentences whenever we talk about our past journey. Therefore, we are required to talk about these experiences in simple past tenses. For example, last year I had a journey to India. Since we use the time expression, then we are required to use simple past. This is quite in contrast with continuous and perfect tenses. For example, in perfect tenses, which was used for talking about our educational or professional backgrounds, we were using these verb tenses because there were no specific time expressions. So I have studied, for example, accounting. So in this sentence, you do not see any time expression. We do not know exactly when we have started or finished our education. So whenever we are talking about our journey, since we are using a specific time expressions, we have to use simple past tense. For talking about an ideal type of journey for what is good in our opinion, we have to use descriptive language. Descriptive language normally comprises adjectives. For example, I dream about a journey which is full of sightseeing, so full of something. So this is a kind of descriptive language. Or we have, for example, which is, I dream about a journey which is. It is a relative clause. So relative clause is a kind of adjective. So these are considered as adjective clauses. So in this case, relative clauses and different sorts of adjectives which are registered under the category of descriptive language are absolutely essential for talking about an ideal type of journey we would like to experience in future. For talking about the quality of our experiences, we are always advised to use superlative structure. For example, we say it was the most delicious food I have ever had, or it was the best flight ever. So the most delicious, the best flight. So these are superlative structures which illustrate the quality of our positive experiences. So these are grammatical structures we would definitely recommend our students to use. We have a set of topic related vocabulary, for example, types of journey, pilgrimages, when people go on a journey in order to visit a church, museums for religious purposes, etc. Sightseeing is normally for visiting museums or going to the mother nature, etc. Safari is for wildlife, seeing wild animals, how they mate, how they hunt. And cruise is normally for a ship which goes into the middle of the ocean, sea, or even some, let's say, rivers. And there are a lot of drinking and dancing in question. So people will have the opportunity to drink, dance, and benefit from a wide range of musical genres. We have camping. Camping is normally in the forests or, let's say, high on the mountains. People run tents and spend some nights into their tents. So these are different types of journey. We have accommodations, the places, for example, hotel. You know that motel is a little smaller and less luxurious compared with a hotel. Cottages, small, normally wooden houses placed in the forests or sometimes on mountains, different places, and holiday resorts. So basically, leisure centers where people could go during their holidays. For example, let's say a seaside resort. So next to the sea and the coastline, you can go and let's say enjoy a holiday resort. Landmarks are important places in a city or a village you can see, for example, temples, museums, monuments. So temples are normally places for worshipping some objects. There are statues. For example, Buddhists normally worship in temples. Museums are places where you can find a lot of historical artifacts. Monuments are historical buildings. Mausoleums are, let's say, the tomb of probably famous people, kings, queens, etc. And national parks are again some kind of parks which are landmarks. And activities, the types of activities tourists could have. For example, they could go to visit museums, they could visit national heritage museum of a country, they could eat local food. Sometimes those types of food are quite exotic for tourists. So interesting, different tastes, different ingredients. And they can go trekking. So trekking is a long walk, sometimes really demanding, normally on the mountains or in the depth of forests. So these are the sorts of activities tourists would normally do. Some traveling expressions, just make sure to teach your students these expressions. Off the beaten tracks, so if you go deep into the forest where there are no roads, there are no human existence, so these are called off the beaten track experiences. Once in a lifetime experience, it means it is just once for your entire lifetime. So a unique experience. It is definitely recommended. Get away from the city hustle. It means, for example, this is more useful in case of running a tent, camping in the forest, away from the city. People talk a lot. There are a lot of engine sounds. So there are a lot of noise. There are a lot of struggling on the streets. So in order to stay away from the city hustle, we try to say get away. Go off the grid. It means basically a type of journey in which you do not use any technology. So you basically refrain from using your, for example, cell phone. So you're not accessible. You go off the grid. Grid, it means the network. So whenever you go off the network, you can say, I would like to go off the grid in my journey. I would like to stay away from technology, from internet, from chatting, from mobile phone, from answering phone calls. So these are all examples of, let's say, going off the grid. So now with this prior knowledge, let's plunge directly into our conversation activity planning. So before attending the class, we will normally ask our students to watch a couple videos. The first one is, let's say, a Band 9 student answering an IELTS speaking test. This is in the framework of traveling. So the majority of questions is about traveling, whether you would like to stay in a hotel or in a tent, and so forth. A comprehensive video around 2 hours, which is all about traveling. Probably it is going to have everything you need for a decent score in your IELTS speaking. Tests about traveling is present in this video. It is definitely recommended, especially if your students have enough time. The first thing we do during the class is our warm-up. In form of warm-up, we will always provide some worksheets. Our students are expected to answer some questions. They are expected to give some examples of these hyperonyms, types of journey we have had: pilgrimage, sightseeing, safari, cruise, camping, you know that. We have travelers, so the people who go on a pilgrimage, these are called pilgrims. For sightseeing, the people are called sightseers. Cruise takers are the ones who, let's say, go on a cruise, and campers are the people who go camping. So students are expected to provide examples of travelers, types of journey, accommodations. We have had them in the previous slides. Tourist activities. So basically these are major activities: snorkeling, hiking, visiting important landmarks, eating local food, or even sunbathing, especially in Eastern Asian countries, or let's say in Eastern nations. Tourist attractions, different places which attract tourists. So for pilgrims who go on a pilgrimage, we have temples, shrines, mausoleums, cathedrals. For historical sightseeing, we have monuments, museums. And for natural sightseeing, we have rainforests, mountains, and seasides, etc. These lists are far from being comprehensive, and make sure to check my comments section below. I have provided some, let's say, in detailed worksheets, which will be far more comprehensive from, let's say, these slides you see in this video. We have some definitions. Our students are asked to provide some definitions: tour packages, making a reservation. So basically, whenever you book a hotel in advance, you make a reservation. Souvenirs, whatever you buy from a journey in order to, let's say, have a souvenir, a memory, a good memory of your good experiences, called souvenir. Exotic food, for example, we have something called kalle pache in Iran, which is quite exotic, which is quite, let's say, different from the type of food normally people from around the world experience. Or for example, if we go to Mexico, there is a food called chapulines. It is on the basis of grasshoppers. This is quite different. This is called an exotic food. Or the same thing goes for China or other Eastern Asian countries. So in China, you have a wide range of exotic food. After covering worksheets, we will plunge into conversation activities. So basically, it is quite straightforward. There are a set of questions. As instructors, we will ask our students, and our students are expected to give argumentative answers. Where do you like to travel during holidays? And they have to give a reason for any answer they provide. And the same thing goes for the second question, and so forth. Again, there is much wider range of questions in the comment section below, so make sure to check them out. They are free of charge, absolutely free of charge, so you can use them in your classes. There is no copyright. The next one is assessment. We have formative assessment. Let's say during the education assessment is the feedback we receive from our students. So whenever they answer our questions, we receive feedback, and we can make sure if we are moving on the right track. Just be sure whenever you're going to provide some instructions to your students, do not interrupt students. We have to let them finish. Once they have finished, we will provide them some constructive feedback to respect in order to improve their speaking. We focus on enabling objectives. As always, the major purpose of our feedback is for returning students back on enabling objectives. So whenever there is a kind of trip which is ideal, the type of trip that students dream about, we will recommend them to use descriptive language. Whenever they're going to talk about their experiences, for example, what was good, what was interesting, why they would like to go back to that, let's say, destination again. So we will ask them to talk about positive experiences. Therefore, we focus on superlative structure. We will ask them to use superlatives as much as possible for expressing positive experiences they have had from their previous journey. And finally, we give tips. It is merely tips, not just prescriptions. We just describe, we just provide them better alternatives. It is absolutely a student's responsibility to adapt our suggestions, our model answers. We do not prescribe, we do not push our students in a specific direction. Students have to personalize the answers we provide them. Homework assignment, as always, at the end of the speaking session, we will provide some IELTS task to cue cards about traveling, and we will ask our students to record themselves for a couple minutes and send it to our colleagues in order to receive constructive feedback. So that's it. For the next conversation activity, we will focus on personality and characteristics.